Imagine this, an entire kingdom, 10 tribes of Israel, millions of people, vanishes from history after being carried away into captivity. The Jews, everyone knows they went to Babylon and came back. But what about the other tribes? The ones who held the birthright. The ones God called Ephraim, his firstborn. Here's the mystery that's puzzled historians and theologians for centuries. If God made unconditional promises to the 10-tribe kingdom of Israel, promises about returning to their land, planting vineyards in the mountains of Samaria, becoming a great company, then where are they today? And why do so many people assume every prophecy about Israel must be talking about the Jews? Welcome to today's exploration of one of Scripture's most intriguing puzzles. What you're about to discover might completely change how you read the prophetic books of the Bible. Welcome to Uncovered Biblical History and Traditions, the channel dedicated to lost stories of the biblical past. Discover stories of pre-Christian historical roots, biblical legends, lost church history, and forgotten historical characters of faith. It is very helpful if you hit the like, subscribe, and share. Help build my channel, and let's take a look together into these uncovered forgotten tales. There's a problem in how many believers approach Scripture, and it's creating confusion that's lasted for generations. Those who dwell in the realm of faith need to shake off their lethargy and wake up from what some have called a God-dishonoring ignorance. The issue: failing to understand that names like Samaria, Ephraim, Joseph, Rachel, Judah, Jacob, and Israel carry not just historical significance, but profound prophetic meaning. Think about it this way: when historians read about Israel, Samaria, and Ephraim in the historical books of the Bible, they correctly identify these as referring to the 10-tribe birthright kingdom, the northern kingdom that split from Judah after Solomon's reign. But here's where things get interesting. When those exact same names appear in prophetic passages, suddenly people assume they must be talking about the Jews. But does that make sense? If a name designates a specific people group in the historical accounts, shouldn't that same name refer to the same people when used prophetically? Logic would suggest yes. And this principle applies equally to the terms Judah and the Jews. While the name Israel often includes the Jews, after all, it's their racial and national name, it's used repeatedly in contexts that have absolutely nothing to do with the Jewish people. Let's examine one of the most remarkable passages in Scripture. In the 31st chapter of Jeremiah, the Lord makes an unconditional promise to the birthright nation. This isn't vague or symbolic language. It's clear, definite, and unmistakable. God declares that his people shall consider this prophecy in the last days, and he deliberately uses specific names: Jacob, Ephraim, Israel, Samaria, and Rachel, the mother of the birthright family. Listen to what God says in this prophecy: I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Connected to this declaration, he promises, he that scattered Israel will gather him. But here's what makes this even more compelling: God commands that this message be proclaimed in the land where Ephraim is living in the last days. The promise continues with stunning specificity: thou shalt yet plant vines upon the mountains of Samaria. And God adds this crucial detail: a great company shall return thither. Return thither. Return where? To the place from which they came, Samaria. But who exactly is returning? Jacob, Rachel, Joseph, Ephraim, Samaria, Israel. These names aren't interchangeable with Judah. They represent the birthright kingdom. Now, let's look at what history actually tells us. It's well known that the Jews went into the Babylonian captivity. Even better documented is their return from that captivity, when they dwelt for a season in Judea, or Jewry. Although some stayed in Babylon. The historical record on this is crystal clear. But here's the stunning gap in the historical narrative: aside from one priest who was brought back from among the captives of Israel to dwell in Bethel, tasked with teaching the mongrel post-Samaritans the manner of the God of the land, there isn't a single word in sacred or profane history showing that any tribe, tribes, or remnants of tribes from the pre-Samaritans ever returned to their former home. Think about what this means. The children of Israel who composed the northern kingdom, the people whose territory was known in biblical history as Samaria, and all Israel, distinct from all Judea and Jewry, which was the Jewish homeland, these people never came back. At least, not according to any historical record we possess. The chronology of these events reveals something fascinating. The Jewish captivity occurred in 588 BC, according to Ussher's chronology. The first prophecy about their captivity was uttered in 623 BC, and the last one came 23 years later, around 600 BC. But here's what's remarkable: the prophet Amos had already prophesied about the captivity and return of the 10-tribed kingdom 164 years before anyone even mentioned that the Jews would go into captivity. That's nearly 2 centuries earlier. And his prophecies came 199 years before the Jews were actually carried away. When Amos wrote about the 10 tribes' captivity, he used very specific names to identify them. He mentioned Samaria 4 times, Joseph 3 times, Isaac twice, Bethel 5 times, and Israel 17 times. Here's an interesting detail: Amos is the only prophet who applied the name Isaac to either of the 2 kingdoms. But there's no doubt he's referring to the 10-tribe kingdom. The book opens with these words, the words of Amos, who was among the herdsmen of Tekoa, which he saw concerning Israel, in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam son of Joash, king of Israel. Amos writes, "And the high places of Isaac shall be desolate, and the sanctuaries of Israel shall be laid waste, and I will rise up against the house of Jeroboam with the sword." The priest Amaziah reported to Jeroboam, king of Israel, "Amos hath conspired against thee in the midst of the house of Israel. The land is not able to bear all his words. For thus Amos saith, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall surely be led away captive out of their own land." Amaziah even told Amos to flee away into Judah and prophesy there instead, saying, "But prophesy not again any more at Bethel, for it is the king's chapel." This is significant because when Joshua divided the land of Canaan by lot, Bethel fell to the house of Joseph. It was in possession of the birthright kingdom and served as the chapel of the idolatrous king, polluted by one of Jeroboam I's golden calves. While it's true these people were taken to Assyria and given a promise of eventual return, something else had to happen first. God declared something extraordinary about their destiny. "I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as corn is sifted in a sieve, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth." This is a promise of preservation through scattering. Every grain would be preserved, even as they were sifted among all nations. This isn't a picture of return to one location, it's a picture of global dispersion with divine protection. After prophesying about this worldwide sifting, Amos then describes their return. "And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build the waste cities, and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards, and drink the wine thereof. They shall also make gardens, and eat the fruit of them. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God." Notice the permanence of this promise: they shall no more be pulled up. This is an unconditional, eternal promise. And yet, despite the overwhelming evidence, despite the fact that this prophecy was written 2 centuries before the Jews were sent into captivity, while they were still counted among the faithful saints, despite the clear language that when fulfilled, these people shall no more be pulled up from their land, there are still those who insist this prophecy was fulfilled when the Jews returned from Babylonian captivity. This interpretation requires ignoring several facts. First, the prophecy wasn't about Judah, it was about Israel, the northern kingdom. Second, it was given centuries before Judah's captivity was even mentioned. Third, when the Jews returned from Babylon, they were eventually scattered again, clearly violating the "no more be pulled up" condition. And fourth, the prophecy specifically mentions Samaria, Ephraim, and Joseph, names associated with the northern kingdom, not Judah. The audacity of this misapplication reveals how theory-bound interpretations can blind readers to plain scripture. When people are determined that everything Israelitish must be Jewish, they force passages to say what they don't mean, ignoring the distinct identities that scripture itself carefully maintains. So what does all this mean? It means there's a people group, a birthright nation, the descendants of the 10 tribes, who have been scattered among all nations, preserved by divine protection, and who carry promises yet to be fulfilled. These aren't the Jews, though they're related. They're the people called by the names Ephraim, Joseph, Israel, and Samaria in prophecy. Understanding this distinction doesn't diminish God's promises to Judah or the Jewish people. Rather, it expands our understanding of God's comprehensive plan for all the tribes of Israel. Both houses, Judah and Ephraim, have roles to play in the unfolding of prophetic history. The question that remains is this: if the 10 tribes were sifted among all nations, preserved like grain that doesn't fall to the earth, where are they today? That's a question worth pondering, because the prophecies declare that in the last days, this mystery will be understood, and Ephraim, God's firstborn, will return to plant vineyards in the mountains of Samaria. The biblical record is clear for those willing to read it without forcing every Israelite prophecy through a Jewish lens. The names matter, the distinctions matter, and the promises, unconditional, eternal, specific, matter most of all. As believers study Scripture, particularly its prophetic portions, they would do well to ask, which Israel is being addressed here? Which promises apply to which people? The answers might surprise them. More importantly, those answers might reveal that God's plan is far bigger, far more intricate, and far more wonderful than they've been taught. The birthright nation exists, the promises remain, and in the last days, as God declared through Jeremiah, His people will finally understand what has been hidden in plain sight all along. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.